So a man wrongfully convicted in a decades-old murder is now a free man as of Friday. Watch this moment.
Under both the post-conviction petition and the 214-01 petition, and it will grant the request for a new trial.
That is an emotional and surprise. There's Jack McCullough reacting to this news in the courtroom. He was freed from prison. 76 years old. He was convicted in 2012 for a 1957 murder of a little girl, 7-year-old Maria Ridolph. She was taken from her front yard. She was out there playing in the snow with a friend, and the friend ran off to get her mittens. This little girl's body was found weeks later. It was a crime at the time that gripped the attention of the entire nation. In 2012, it was the oldest cold case ever to go to court. McCullough always maintained his innocence. Janie O'Connor stood by him throughout. She is Jack McCullough's stepdaughter. Janie, I'm happy for your family. Obviously, this was a wonderful afternoon for all of you, so thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
First question, how did this happen? How was he wrongful? You know, he said he was off at an Air Force recruiting base during the time this crime happened. Why didn't they believe that the first time around?
Well, the first time around in 1957, when Jack, along with hundreds of other people, were considered suspects, he was cleared. He made a collect phone call from another city that was verified by the FBI agents. They interviewed the phone operator and the manager. He spoke with 3 recruitment officers, and those gentlemen were interviewed by the FBI. And with all of the evidence and witnesses verifying that he was in another city at the time of the abduction, he was cleared in 1957.
Right.
But when you fast forward to 2008, and then the trial at 2011, the prosecution was able to keep out the original 1957 and 1958 investigation and create a new timeline. And since all of Jack's witnesses had passed away in those 55 years, he didn't have any witnesses.
Yeah. What about the little girl who was with Maria and who saw this man? Her testimony was key, right?
Her testimony was essentially all the evidence they had, but they were also able to keep out at trial that she had already previously identified someone on December 22nd of 1957, and that gentleman was 5'4" and 36 years old. And in 1957, Jack had just turned 18, and he was 6 feet tall and about 140 pounds, so he was 18 years old, tall and skinny. And her original identification, and she had actually identified 2 people. They were both mid to late 30s, short and heavy.
So they look nothing like your stepfather, the people that she had originally identified. What's your opinion of how this went so horribly wrong? I mean, he's living his life and, you know, feeling like this is something, you know, that he wasn't part of and isn't part of his life. And then all of a sudden, slam, in 2012, it's right back in his lap. And the next thing he knows, he's in prison.
He was, I said a long time ago that he was the last man standing because he was so young in 1957. All of the people that they had originally really looked at, well, they were adults, you know, mid-30s and older. You know, and Brian Henley and Larry Cott, they received awards for their police work in this case.
Finding him guilty.
Finding him guilty. Yes.
And what piece of evidence, what central piece of evidence did they use to find him guilty?
They used Kathy Chapman's identification. There's been a lot of talk of the 6-pack photo lineup that they used. Illinois requires that the lineup reflect previous descriptions and identifications. Her previous identifications were of late 30s, short and heavy, but the 6-pack array they used were high school yearbook pictures. Right. So very drastically different. And that was essentially the evidence they had in the, I mean, their case is built on children's memories because children are the only ones left at this time. And so,
got it. Janie, we got to go, but
what time somebody remembered eating dinner.
Real quickly, if you can, what was his reaction? What did he say to all of you after spending these 4 years in prison?
I mean, he was just so grateful. There's 3 people that made today possible. Crystal Harold from the Public Defenders, the investigator, Jeff Doty, who wrote the book Piggyback, and obviously Richard Schmock. Their willingness to do their job with integrity and a moral compass made today possible, and I think Jack is overwhelmed with the gratitude that these 3 people did their job.
Janie, thank you. Obviously,
thank you.
It's another beginning for the family of the little girl who was murdered, but your family is back together, and we thank you for talking with us today. Thank you, Janie.
Thank you for having me.